what are some of the different audio solutions that SRS offers, and what are the reasons behind their invention?
Well, I believe, I'd have to look at a timeline, but I believe right after we did SRS and commercialized it, we came up with Focus. And Focus resulted from speaking to automotive manufacturers who said, we don't have any room for speakers in the dashboard. There's all kinds of air conditioning tubes and things up there, and we really would like to just put the speakers down in the side doors, especially on less expensive cars, midline cars, and less expensive cars where they're not putting tweeters all over the place. What Focus did was a similar thing to what SRS did, but instead of expanding the spatial field horizontally, it gave us control over the spatial field vertically. So you could actually take Focus, apply it to speakers that were down by your knees, or below your knees, or under a table, and raise the apparent sound image up to the table or up to the dashboard in a car. So that was the impetus for the invention of Focus, but it actually got kidnapped by projection TV people in the 90s because they wanted to raise the dialogue up onto the screen. And they also found that even if you had the speakers up level with the screen, a little bit of Focus improved the clarity of the dialogue, and they started to use it for that as well. And then just recently, not recently, in the last 5 or 6 years, it's come back to the automotive industry, and it's used very extensively to again raise the image. And it also does, even if you have high mounted tweeters in a car, it does a good job of integrating the image so that you don't have the low and mid frequencies coming from here and the high frequencies coming from here, and you can hear the difference. Focus integrates the image, brings everything together. After that, probably the biggest thing that we did was True Surround. True Surround remains today probably our biggest seller, one form or another, True Surround in one form or another. And we created that based on a conversation with Dolby. Dolby was just getting ready to introduce what at that time was called AC3 and is now called Dolby Digital. And we were talking with them about it, and they said, we're worried that a lot of people aren't going to invest in 5.1 systems, and they're not going to put speakers all over the room, and they don't want to run wires. And they said, is there any way you guys can render what we do through the 2 speakers? Just 2 speakers in a TV or 2 speakers in at that time, a stereo receiver. And we looked at the problem, and we saw that the techniques that we had used in SRS could be extended to rendering an entire surround field by just modifying some of the correction filters, the spatial correction filters. We could add some, and then we used some SRS on the front channels to widen that field and integrate it with the rear field. And we created essentially the first multi-channel surround renderer that was capable of rendering surround through only 2 speakers. We actually worked closely with Dolby on that because at the beginning they were very concerned that there was going to be many devices, and in fact there were many devices, but the only way that people could hear what they did with AC3 was through True Surround. So they wanted to get into the act, so they knew that there was integrity to what we did, and there would be integrity to the final product, the combination of the Dolby decoder and our technology. So that was a real breakthrough because nobody had done that before, and like I say, to this day it's our most popular technology. Probably the most significant one after that, and I won't go through every single one of them, was TrueBass. We realized there was a need. Speakers were getting smaller, enclosures were getting smaller, and there was a need to kind of overcome physics, if you will. We needed a way to create the perception of low bass below what the speakers could reproduce with the particular enclosure size. And that was kind of prescient because this was way before flat panel TVs that really exacerbated the problem, because you still had some room to put a decent sized speaker in a CRT TV. But with flat panels, everything just shrunk down to almost nothing, and TrueBass turned out to be a very effective way of overcoming that problem in flat panel TV. So those are just a few of the highlights. I mean, there's so many more that I could go over, like circle surround, where did that come from? But it's kind of the highlights of a lot of where those technologies came from.